Hello. I'm gonna make this really short. Um, I think I have a different perspective from the war in Ukraine. Um, let's start just by saying that the aggressor that really changed the dynamics of the war was Russia. But this war has been going on since 2014, and Russian claims have been exaggerated. But you can go online, go to Vice, and look at their videos from 9 years ago, 8 years ago, 2013, 2014, 2015. They're indeed kind of like neo Nazis in Ukraine. Also, it is not a lie that in a way there was a little bit of a civil war, not to the scale to say that they were like killing Russians and everything like that, but you need to understand the history. Um, Peter the Great, the capital of the Russian Empire before the Soviet Union, was indeed in Kiev. Um, Russians and Ukrainians are really, really close racially and in language. Both Ukrainian is a derivation of Russian. Like the languages are very close. Also, I will say every single Ukrainian speaks Russian or understands Russian. Um, you can see that when they capture any Russian, they're not talking Ukrainian, they're talking Russian. Um, why is there like the basis of a civil confrontation? It is because the Russians held a lot of power during the Soviet Union, and they didn't let go. Like a lot of the police were subject to Russian oligarchs, and the Russians were losing that power little by little. Actually, the last one of the last presidents, I don't know if it was 2014, 16, that was the first wave of militias, Ukrainian militias. They basically overthrown Russian puppet that was the president of Ukraine for a long time. So the the idea that Ukraine has been not under some Russian interference is not accurate. What happens is that they were losing it to a point that it made Russians very nervous. Also, in some places like Crimea and other places, there were indeed um, some killing of Russians. Like you can see them being burned in a building. I know that's being used as propaganda because I'm pretty sure in other cities Russians maybe did the same to Ukrainians, right? But the fact that Western media is trying to ignore facts as the historic revision, what is called historical revision of Vladimir Putin, is actually history. Like he's not lying. Kiev was the capital of the Russian Empire. Like if you don't know that, I'm sorry, but Western propaganda cannot get to the point to rewrite history. Of course, we cannot compare Western propaganda where like we can try to get more. We can even watch, if we want, the Russian networks and try to get both sides of the story. In Russia, you cannot. So I'm not never going to compare or equate the lies they feed us with the lies the Russians fed their population. I'm also not gonna lie that if I was in Russia, it's no way I'll be making this video. So we need to be thankful of our weaker whatever democracy, but it's still really powerful to the point that I feel safe talking about a topic like this. But I also want to make sure that something that bothers me is like the Western media is showing the killing of Russians kind of like a joke, kind of like they are not humans, but they will never show the killing of Ukrainians. Actually, Zelensky is somebody I just don't like. I of course I cannot compare with Saddam Hussein, but the mistake that can happen is the same that happened with Iraq when he was fighting Iran. The United States and its allies arm Iraq because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now, when Trump was talking to Zelensky, everybody was looking at that guy as what he most likely is. Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And the fact that they went to war is not going to clean that. But what I was going to say is that I do respect the fact that Zelensky is not attacking. That counteroffensive, of course, if you want to debilitate Russia, is a good move, but it's going to be a lot of death. Military theory says that the attacker needs three times the number of the defenders. And now, what people don't want to say out loud is that attacking is way more dangerous than defending, which means that Russian are just waiting. Like that fact, that's a fact. Especially if they're gonna fortify some regions, if they are not gonna keep attacking. Um, and I'm kind of glad like Zelensky's playing with that, and he just keeps asking for more. He's not gonna attack. If he attacks, I don't understand why the West wants him to attack. I feel like the amount of Ukrainians that have died must be a very big number. A very big number. Like, it's no way that is at least a third of what they claim the Russians' casualties are. So let's say it's like 50,000 people, 100,000 people. That's a lot of blood. Also, most of the Russian army like slaves in a way, like they're forced to fight, and like there's no pride in killing them. They're not terrorists. They're just unlucky that they were born there. Like just call it what it is. They're unlucky that to be born there. Um, so those are like the things that the Western media is not being realistic, and that's what it gives ammunition to extremes. Like yeah, we need to support Ukraine, but in a way, we need to understand that some of those regions, like the Donetsk or whatever it's called, even Crimea, first of all, like Obama lost it. Like I mean, he didn't do anything right there. Like we trying to help Ukraine reclaim Crimea, and it's time to negotiate. And there's a lot of there's Russian Ukrainians, like ethnic Russians, that like why? How can you rewrite history and just say they don't exist? Like look at the numbers. Like 20% of Ukrainians speak Russian, and they were like banning their language in schools. And right now, that's exaggerated. Like they took every single Russian sign, which means that if you're Russian, you think you feel safe in Kiev. Like, come on. Like, there's a lot of civilians in the Russian side that were caught on the wrong town. And since 2014, there were some Russian towns and some Ukrainian towns. There were some Ukrainian militias and there were some Russian militias of both people that were born in Ukraine. So we start accepting those facts. It will be easier for negotiation, and like the people are in the power. I feel bad for Ukraine because they're using them. They're using Ukrainians to debilitate Russia, and they're not leaving any space for consensus. Like if you don't give any point to Russia, even saying like there are Russians, ethnic Russians in Ukraine. Um, of course, I don't think Putin went to war to save them, but that's his excuse, and it did happen. And he actually, if you go to when the Soviet Union collapsed, there was an agreement that NATO will never take the ex-Soviet countries, and like now a lot of them are part of the Western Alliance. Um, I don't think that's too meaningful because like these places became democratic and they were abused by the Soviet regime. But in a way, there was a treaty and we broke it. Like we have broken a lot of treaties, like the one with Iran, um, even with China. Like we're openly saying that we don't want them to be a big economy. Like we're not saying like you're a bad country, so we cannot let you get big because you will attack us. No, we're just saying like we're gonna contain them because they're gonna surpass us. That's if you think about it in like sport games, that's not sport like that's not actually ethical. It's kind of like saying like you're better than me, so I'm gonna like poison your water or like I don't know. Basically, like if they have done the same to the states where it was reaching world supremacy, it'll be like we are just telling the Chinese that the only way they're gonna survive is by war, and I just don't get it. Like I don't get it. Basically, it's kind of like a fact that they are gonna become the biggest economy, and usually something like that will imply that at one point they're gonna have the biggest military. And like we're saying, kind of like out loud, we're gonna sabotage them just because that's gonna happen. I think we should like maybe just incorporate South America. I don't know, like I'm South American and I'll feel bad and maybe it's a war, but our countries are so corrupt that I will actually join the military to help the states take over all South America. Of course, like we're not gonna impose all this woke political correctness shit there because like it's not about culture, but we could have a way bigger economy. Same with like contain France like sense of like we want to be something they cannot be. They're a very small country, like United States, Europe, and South America combined. They will be probably they cannot contain China. They will just be bigger than China, and I think we should think on those terms instead of like creating this sense of urgency that is only gonna like in the states in America. There's so much things going on politically that we're distracted even if we don't think we're distracted. Because I think on the top they think they're not distracted, but of course we're distracted. Well, in China, they kind of fear, they're expecting a war and they have one party, and I don't think there's a way we're gonna be able to compete with them, even if we, even like with this sabotage, like they're gonna get in like in a brain setup similar to North Korea, where they put all in into like war, and of course they can let their people starve, they can do whatever, and they might just come up with crazy weapons, and there's nothing we can do, you know. So um, I know a lot of people like it's impossible that some like intelligence analyst is not saying something similar to this. It just I just don't find it on the media. Like it's like this war just started when Putin invaded, and it's been going for like 10 years. You know, of course it escalated into a full scale war, but I think history is gonna call it what it is. Like 2014, Russians were sending green men. They used to call them green little men. I don't know why little, but and yeah, and it was and these like militias that you can call it far right or neo Nazis. They actually like they had the power in Donetsk. Like in those areas, it was like this town is Russian. This town is like a militia. It was no army. Like Zelensky couldn't even go there, even not to the Russian side, not to the Ukrainian militia control side. Um, Now the militias are folding to the government somehow, but we cannot, and that's why I know I'm in a free country. We can still find those videos online. When the same BBC, even CNN, everybody was talking about these Nazis, and now people just want to laugh about that like it never happened. Um, I don't think it's that important, you know. Like there's a lot of Nazis in Russia. Like it's kind of like a fate, you know, like identity and like even music and youths and um, a lot of like Germans and people from that region they meet in Ukraine and they meet in Russia is weird. Um, so I don't think that's an excuse. I'm just saying like don't say it didn't happen because it did happen. Um, and also we need to think about like are we making this Ukrainian army one of the most powerful in the world? And remember what happened to Iraq. Like Zelensky is not gonna be always the president. I don't even trust him. Um, but at any point, like again, a Russian puppet can get on power, and all those weapons we gave them just go back to Russia, or uh, Ukraine disintegrates or something. You know, like you cannot go from Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries to like Ukraine is a symbol of democracy and like ethics. Like it doesn't work that way. The enemy of my enemy doesn't necessarily need to be my friend, and that has been proven to the USA so many times. Like Al Qaeda, I think we helped them because we were trying to help them fight the Russians, right? So it happened already. Of course, like it's different. Like these religious ideologies are really hard to contain, and Ukraine doesn't have that. It's not like Chechnya or something, but I just wish there were more clarity so we can keep supporting Ukraine, but also like put a limit to the propaganda that is showing us dead Russians, and we're supposed to laugh about it. That's just That's going to disincentivize this country even more, and we're better than that.